Hey guys, so this is part 3 of the frequently asked questions for homeschool. If you haven't seen the first parts, the part 1 and part 2, please go check those out after you watch this one, before you watch this one. It doesn't really go in any particular order, but I just wanted to answer as many frequently asked questions as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some more. I'm trying not to make the videos extremely long, which is why they're in many different parts. So I don't know, they've been about 15 minutes or so. Whatever the case, I'm just kind of going with this. So I'm just going to start off where I left off from the last video. Um, so check that out. The last question that I answered on the last one was, how do I keep track of hours? That was the last question, but it was multiple questions. So today we're going to start with, where can I find curriculum that's not religious? Um, it's just a matter of Googling. You can Google homeschool curriculum or secular homeschool curriculum. Secular is the word that you're looking for. A lot of people, even people that are religious, some people don't want to incorporate their religion in their studies for one reason or the other, and that's totally up to you. Um, there are so many different curriculum sets. Curricula? I don't know. I'm gonna Google it. But there's so many different ones that you can get that are secular. Just, I'm sure a list will pull up. I'll Google it and put a list. I said in the last video, or the first one, there's going to be a list in the files of the group that kind of lists some of the curriculum options that you can go through. So I'll be sure to put that in the files of the group. If you are watching this on YouTube and you're not on the Facebook group, go check out the Facebook group. It's called Homeschool Getting Started During COVID. Check the files out on there, and I will hopefully get those out to you soon. The next question, how do I balance work and school? That's a huge one, especially in the midst of this pandemic. A lot of parents still have to go to work, whether you're working from home or you're working outside the home, but you still want to homeschool, or you considered homeschooling in the past, but you haven't done it because you're like, I can't homeschool and work full time. You absolutely can homeschool and work full time. Um, this common misconception that a lot of people have is that you have to homeschool during normal business hours. You have to homeschool between the hours of 8 and 4, 8 and 5, 9 to 5, whatever. Just like they would be doing if they were going to school. You don't have to at all. And I think I touched on this in my first video or something. If you did an hour during the day and you did 3 hours in the evening, or whatever the case, you 100% can do that. If your children can handle during school in the evening, you can do school in the evening. Especially if you have older children, or if you have someone that's there with your children during the day while you're at work, you can give them some of the easier things to do, just kind of depending on the age of your child and the style of your child's learning. You could give them workbooks. Younger children, you could give them their coloring pages, give them just some simple handwriting things that they can kind of work on without needing help from you. And then when you get back, you guys can do the lessons together that you guys need to work on together, or you can go back and go over the work that they did, or whatever the case. But you can 100% fix homeschool to fit your schedule, whether that's for home, because you have to work outside the home, work inside the home, you have other kids, whatever the case is. It's free reign. You can fix your schedule to make it work. So it's 100% possible. You don't have to have set hours for homeschool. Even if you typically do homeschool from the hours of 12 in the afternoon to 4 in the evening or whatever, and then the next day you were like, okay, we have a doctor's appointment, we can't do that, we're just gonna have to switch our hours to later in the day. That's fine. As opposed to, if you were going to school and a child would have to miss out on however many classes or whatever class because you had a doctor's appointment set for this time of the day. Of course, school is during normal business hours, so you would have to miss school. They would have to miss some time at school in order to catch those businesses that are open, like doctors and whatever the case. So with homeschool, if you need to switch things up to fit your day, even on a day-to-day basis, you can do that 100%. So it's really easy to balance that. Um, as far as time goes, as far as structure and just planning is going to be key. But again, just kind of gauge how your children are. Can your children handle a little more student-led learning where they can handle taking the workbooks and kind of, or whatever style you're using? Can they go off on their own and do a little bit of work while you get your stuff together, get home from work, wind down, or whatever the case, while you make dinner? But also incorporate school into real life, especially if you're working from home. No matter what the age, homeschooling isn't just academics. It's not just math and science and history workbooks or whatever the case. Help, cooking, grocery shopping. If you need to go grocery shopping or whatever, take your children with you. Show them what you're looking at when you're buying things. Show them, do you have a list? Did they make a list with you? Or, do you have recipes? Have them go online and find some recipes or whatever the case. Just incorporate that your day into schooling, so you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to homeschool and I have to work and I have to parent, I have to cook, I have to this. Put it all together. Put it all together. Teach them. This is homeschool. Teach them real life in the midst of. So I'm gonna, I will go on and on and on about that, and that wasn't even really the question. But the next question is, how do I teach multiple ages? That kind of goes into what I was just saying. But I know a lot of people have children of different ages. One thing that I've suggested to people, which is a huge help, and this is more so for people that have young children, like toddlers, and then they also have school-age children. It's really hard to kind of focus on teaching your older children when you have a toddler, or a baby, or whatever the case. But for the toddlers, you can have something, and I can't think of the name right now, but I'm going to call them busy boxes. I believe they're called busy boxes. But you can just put whatever into these busy boxes when you are sitting down and having one-on-one time with one child. You can have your toddler sitting there in their high chair or, on the floor next to you or wherever you are, and just give them something to mess with. One of the things I liked to do was get like a Ziploc bag, like a little baggie, and put baby oil in it and a couple of drops of food color, and tape the edges, the outside, the bottom, and then the top, with like duct tape or something. So if it were to puncture, then it's not gonna be leaking all over the place. But they just like to feel it, the gel in there, the different colors, the way it moved around. You can mix the oil and the water in there, because it doesn't mix, it just looks really cool. Just stuff for them to mess with, sensory objects to keep their attention for a good 15 minutes to or however long, and switch it up. Don't let them play with the same thing for extended periods of time, because they're going to get bored just like your older children will. Don't give them everything at once, because it's just kind of overwhelming. But there's nothing to switch it out. Nothing's going to be new because you give it to them all at once. So just kind of switch out things for the toddlers so you can work with the older kids. But if you have multiple school age children, just like they would do in a public school setting, sometimes you have circle time where you are teaching the entire class, and then other times you are teaching a set few students, or one student. You're working with one student one-on-one, with sight words or whatever they're doing. So you can have, a lesson where you're reading a book to all of your students, or whatever you're all watching a documentary on Netflix or something, just all together, or whatever lessons you guys can all do together. And then you allow one child to go do the things that they can do on their own. Maybe they're working on their handwriting, things that they're just kind of review, or they can do on their own. Let them go do that. And while they're doing that, take that time to do the subjects with another child that require you to kind of be there, or be there to answer questions for them. And then when you're done working with them individually, allow them to switch spots, go do the things that are easy for them, and then you're available for the other children. So I mean, it works. You don't have to be doing the same thing just kind of bouncing around and driving yourself crazy all day long. But a lot of things that you do with your younger children, you can do with your older children. People have this idea that, a younger child can't handle learning things that your older child can learn, and oftentimes they can. It's just that they aren't introduced to it. I'm not even going to get into that because I'm passionate about that too. Don't underestimate the mind of a child. But don't overwhelm their minds either. But don't underestimate them. But there are many things that you can at least have that conversation about. I remember when I was a kid, I was so interested in my older brother's spelling words for whatever reason, but I was interested in them and hearing them practice their spelling words or whatever, or just finding their spelling word list laying around. I'd sneak a peek at it and swear I could read the words and try to spell them, as a kid. So there are a lot of things that you can introduce or just let them be present while you're having a conversation with the other one, and they may pick up on something early. But it's all a process of elimination. If this doesn't work, then change it up. I say that a million times a day. Until you figure out what works for you, it's okay to change it. If you have any more questions about that, let me know, because I can go as deep into that as you'd like. The next question: do you sit and work in workbooks all day? Absolutely not. That would drive me crazy. That would drive you crazy. That would drive your children crazy. That's going to drive the mailman crazy. It's going to drive everybody crazy. Everybody's going to go crazy. Nobody wants to sit and work in workbooks. That's not realistic. That's not real life. You're not going to live your life, based on reading things out of a workbook, working in a workbook all day long. Learning does not happen when you're just reading and writing. You have to apply what you're learning. And I've said in one of my previous videos, part 1 or part 2, can't remember, I was homeschooling for about 3 hours a day. You have the entire year, at least in my state, you have 365 days to get 1,000 hours for the entire year of homeschool, So I was homeschooling 3 hours. When I say homeschooling, I mean sit down, let's work on our reading, writing, and arithmetic. But outside of those 3 hours, that is real life. That's when you have practical learning. You learn life skills. You are cooking, you are cleaning. They used to get graded on cleaning their room. Just because that's something that you're going to have to learn how to do. You're going to have to learn how to take care of your space. Why not make this learning opportunity a learning opportunity? Why not grade them on it? I'm not like, oh, check mark for this, but it was a learning opportunity for the both of us. It was a teaching opportunity for me, teaching, learning opportunity for them. Cooking, measuring things out, washing their own clothes, taking care of all the things around the house. All of those things they're learning how to do as a child. You don't give kids chores just because it makes your life easier. It does make your life easier, but your whole purpose is to teach your children how to be thriving adults, and that's not just my house, my rules. You do what I say because I say it. You have a job to do, and it would be a disservice to your children for you not to teach them everything that you can of how to, thrive when they are older. So all these things can be considered homeschool. Like I said, going grocery shopping, going to the library, asking the librarian, hey, I'm looking for this book. Can you help me find this book? And, getting used to having those social skills, getting used to speaking to people, as opposed to being in the school classroom setting where you talk to the same few people. You're not having to really socialize. That's why it drives me nuts when people say, I'm worried about my kids socializing when they're in, if they're not in school. They're not able to really socialize. They're not having to use that skill being in school. So if you are homeschooling your children, you're taking them out places with you, and they're having the opportunity to speak to people, to ask questions, to learn from other people, because even though you're their parent and you're their first teacher, you don't know everything. You can't expose them to everything because you are only who you are, and you can only expose them to what you expose them to. But there's so many people in the world from different walks of life with different areas of expertise that can teach your child just in living and just in conversation, What was the question? Yeah, no, I will go all over the place. Workbooks. Yeah, don't do that. Don't make your kids sit and do workbooks all day. People have this idea, like I've seen many homeschool families in the news that are like, oh yeah, all three of my kids graduated high school by the time they were 12 years old, and then they had their bachelor's at 16, and now they're doctors. All of my kids. That's great. And honestly, I'm not even lying. When I first started homeschool, I was like, yeah, we're gonna expedite this process, and all of our kids gonna graduate early. And then when I got into it, I was like, that's not what they're interested in. It's not a requirement. If they learn that way and they wanted to, fly through the material because they could more. I was with it. I was ready, but I had to learn to cater to the style of my children, not to what would look cool or not to what was expected from society, by society for my kids or whatever. So got off track again. Go figure. But my whole point was, don't. Yeah, that's where I was going. Don't sit them down and expect them to work in workbooks all day. Don't make them do any type of work on the computer or whatever the case. Allow them to apply their learning to life and allow them to have that imagination and that creativity. If you sit them down in front of words that somebody else wrote forever, they're always going to wait to hear somebody else's story and apply it to their own life. They're not going to have the ability to write their own story, have their own opinion, ask their own questions because they're constantly reading somebody else's. So let them live their lives outside of the workbooks, outside of the textbooks, outside of the online curriculum or whatever the case. Get out of the workbooks after so long. Take a break from them. Well, I'm already at 17 minutes because, now I can talk. I'm going to answer this one and then I'm going to end it here. How do you keep track of grades? Some people that homeschool don't even keep grades. And again, this is totally up to you. Of course, the older that your children are, you're going to have to keep grades. If you're homeschooling, you're going to want to make sure that you are keeping grades for your older children, especially high school, because you still have to make sure you get your transcript. You still have to make sure they get those hours, however many hours they need of math, however many hours they need of science, whatever the case. You need to make sure that you get those hours in so you can get those transcripts. You can make your own transcript. You can print out your own diploma. All of those things are still acceptable to jobs, to colleges, to military, to all that stuff. It's not like, and I don't know if this was asked before, if you're homeschooled, your diploma at the end of it isn't valid. That's not true. That's not true at all. You don't have to go get a GED because you were homeschooled. That's not true. Your diploma, your transcripts aren't enough. But for the younger children, some people don't grade. Well, they probably grade, but they don't show it to the children. It's just kind of more so for their knowledge. But the thing about grades, especially when you're in public school, the teachers in the schools are grading the children and sending it off to the parents so the parents can see where the kids are. But in my mind, if you're homeschooling, they should never have any grade other than an A+ all the time, because you have the time and you're with your child all the time enough to see, okay, we were working on the Pythagorean theorem and they had trouble with this, so we're going to keep working on it. Why? You don't have to stop a subject and move on to the next one because you're on a time crunch like public school. If they're having trouble in a subject, stay with the subject. You're not on anybody's timeline. So everything should be taught to mastery. But again, it's up to you. This is all it's all up to you. But everything can be taught to mastery. So you don't need grades, because if they get 5 out of 10 of the questions wrong, you don't just grade that paper and file it away and be like, all right, well, they got that wrong. Work with them. Don't sit there all in the same day, but stay on that lesson for however long it takes, just over the course of whatever period, a couple weeks, a month, or whatever, and then eventually they're going to have an A in it, so there's no point in writing it down. But you will have those papers, like you keep records of where they started and just kind of see the process of them getting the material. So I don't do grades. You can keep track of grades if you want to. I have a template. I'll put that in the files too. It's an Excel template. If you want to put the grades and the percentages and all that stuff, you can do that. I'm all the way up to 20 minutes. So let me know if you guys are getting anything out of these videos. Let me know if these videos are helping you, or if I just talk too much and you'd prefer that I type the question and answers out. I will do either or. So thank you for watching. Keep an eye out for part 4. I'm just gonna answer the questions until I don't have any more to answer. But I hope this is helping you guys. I really enjoy sharing what I have with you. So I'm gonna end it here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next video.